Welcome to the Staatsgespräch, the podcast where I talk with my guests about God and everything under the sun. I'm Peter Statz, and in each episode we deep dive into faith and pop culture. Honest, humorous, and mostly free of cliches. Well, I do my best. Today we have the enormous pleasure and a slight nervousness, I have to admit, I'm kind of a fanboy here, of welcoming a man whose pen has made countless readers laugh, cry, and occasionally spill tea out of their noses. Adrian Plass, the beloved English author and master storyteller, is here with us. Now, Adrian has this rare gift. He can take the everyday, the awkward, the absurd, and turn them into moments of deep truth. He somehow manages to speak about faith, life, and human frailty with such honesty that you feel both comforted and convicted, often in the same sentence. So, whether you know him from the Sacred Diary of Adrian Plass, his numerous other works, or simply from that quote you underline 3 times in your favorite book, prepare yourself. We're about to explore the wit and wisdom of a man who can make you laugh about your spiritual struggles and then make you see God's grace right in the middle of it. Adrian, it's a joy and an honor to have you here. Welcome to the Staatsgespräch podcast.
No pressure then, Peter, on me after that wonderful introduction.
You know, it has to be awesome now.
Oh, yes, I know, I realize that. I can hear God tapping me on the shoulder and say, don't take it too seriously, for goodness sake. Just answer the questions.
No, with me, you don't ever have to take it too seriously.
Thank God for that. Yeah.
Adrian, I read, and I'm sure you keep telling that once you were advertised as Adrian Plass, speaker, writer, and Christian for one night only.
That's fact, yeah. Yeah. Well, things like that are a gift to people like me, aren't they? I mean, if you've got something to start with, it's wonderful when you're a speaker, as I'm sure you know. I mean, I remember in the very early days, I was invited to go to somewhere in Wiltshire, which is a rustic part of our country, to a church which had been rebuilt at great expense. And it was run by a man called Michael Christian Edwards. And in those days, I was doing a lot of anagrams, you know, where you mix up the letters and turn them into other words. And as I traveled on the train, I was fiddling with Michael Christian Edwards' name. And suddenly, and not by God's machinations, I mean, who knows, but it suddenly became head charismatic swindler. And he had been in charge of the whole financial operation. When I did my talk, really it could have been 30 seconds long. I would have said that. I did say that. And I could have stopped there. And then I said, right, where's the money? Let's go. And I met him later, actually, and he was a great fellow. But so they have gifts, aren't they? Like that.
Yeah, I know that. You let Gerard in your diaries do that anagram stuff all the time, right?
That's right, yeah, that's right. I didn't think they'd take off like they did, but people kept sending them to me. I mean, someone phoned me, a friend, and said, did you know Billy Graham is an anagram of Big Rally Ham? And I didn't, but I used it. And it's quite difficult to unstick yourself from things of the past when you've written for a number of years.
Yes.
As you mentioned the Sacred Diary. Well, many people read the Sacred Diary, and quite a lot have gone on reading, but that's the one that is usually mentioned to me, apart actually from the 2 latest ones, the Shadow Doctor books, which are quite different. Yeah, in those early days, I'd been so ill. I'd had a breakdown, a stress illness. And so writing the Sacred Diary, my wife said to me, if you write a dismal, miserable book about how horrible you feel, you'll have about 3 readers. And so it was a funny book, or it was supposed to be a funny book, and I didn't know how funny it would be. And because it picked up the truth in so many people's lives, it took off. And that was the beginning of a whole new life, really.
Yeah. That was, of course, the first time when I got in touch with you because of those diaries. But you know what I realized really early? that all the people were saying to me, "Oh, Peter, you have to read it. It's so funny." And I started to read it, but so often I suddenly stopped laughing because it was so true what you wrote and what you observe in Christians and how you can boil it down to the point where you essentially convict and reveal the crazy and peculiar ways we Christians behave.
Yes, I do. I think I was really helped by the fact that I'd been ill. And so because of that, because I was still not well, I wrote the truth. One of the things that is really damaging in Christian literature is a kind of human optimism that wants to make it all right and gives God a good reference.
Yes, I know what you mean. Yeah.
So writing that, there's a line in it. I mean, some of my writing still makes me laugh. Not a lot, but one or two things. There's one where the not the hero, but the poor person trying to write the diary, Adrian. He tries to do a favor for a woman he rather fancies, and he lends her his car.
I know that.
Well, you remember that?
I remember that.
Out of Christian church, and he says, "Where's my bloody car?" Which you just don't write in Christian books. But I think because of that, you're absolutely right. I do remember a young man coming up to me after a meeting in those early days and saying, a rather solemn-looking young man, and he said, "I've read your book." So I said, "Oh, good." He said, "Only I don't think you should let non-Christians read it." And I said, "Oh, that's interesting. Why is that?" And he said, "Well, they might think it's really like that."
But it is.
I said, "I think you're slightly missed the point."
Oh, wow.
It was an accident, really. Bridget, my wife, and I, about a year previously, or 18 months previously, we may have read the story, but we had prayed in our kitchen. We always pray in the kitchen for some strange reason. And we said to God, "We'll go anywhere and do anything." We didn't mean it, of course. No one ever means it.
Especially when we sing it.
Oh, yes, especially when we sing it. Yes. What is it? How's it said? Christians don't tell lies, they sing them.
Yeah, right.
I think God very interestingly did take us at our word, but then I went through this breakdown. And I can remember saying to God, this is not exactly what I had pictured. I offer you my life and you don't prevent me from falling apart. And I came through that. And there was a sort of restructuring of me going on all that time. So when I came to write that book, I was really ready to, not ready to be a Christian again, but ready to tell the truth about anything.
Well, what you wrote was not an embarrassment for God. It's simply an exposure of all the crazy and peculiar things we Christians keep on doing.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah. Although I sympathize because I've done them all and said them all. I mean, when I look back, I cannot bear to think of some of the rubbish I've talked over the years.
I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah.
So you were not a Christian for one night only, but what led you become a Christian for good?
Well, actually, I think the time when I first became a Christian is what made me become a Christian for good, because it put something into me that has never gone, and I hope never goes. And it was when an evangelist came to a church where I had gone basically looking for girls. Really, there was a youth group there, and so I was kind of going to it, and I somehow got into this meeting with an evangelist. So he was talking about the thief on the cross and saying that the fellow says to, as we all know, he said to Jesus, "Remember me when you come to your kingdom." What impressed me at that moment was that he Jesus didn't say, well, it depends on your quiet time or your Bible reading or whether you're good or whether you're bad or whether you're gay or whether you're straight. And there were no dependents. He just said yes. So I've carried the yes through 40 more 50 years, I suppose, inside me. But I've only really grown up sufficiently in the last few years to appreciate what that meant, to have that within me. I've always been a Jesus person. Even when I haven't been, I have been. And that continues. And I've got so much more to learn, but I do thank God for that. A big fat yes for those who want him.
Wow. I want to talk about a subject. I know it's important for you to highlight that, and it's struggles, shadows, and fractures in life. Some people became Christians become a Christian and everything will fall into place, and probably they heard sermons like that.
Yeah.
But what if life still cracks? What if broken edges remain? Perhaps this is where a deep misunderstanding begins.
I think it is. I hope it doesn't happen as much now. But I remember after this meeting, my then girlfriend and I went and saw this evangelist, and we said the prayer, the prayer everybody did say, asking Jesus into your heart and all that, and which I'm a bit wary of now, as a single way of entering the place of God. But it had a real meaning for us. And then within a day or two, obviously he contacted the church leader. I was sent a list of meetings that it would be good for me to attend as a new Christian. And they just made me feel a bit ill. And so I didn't go. And for some time, nothing happened. So I still have my big fat yes in me. But it wasn't enough. And I think also, it's a bit boring in a way, but my own childhood, where I had a very difficult father who used to accuse my mother of terrible things. And I became a very watchful child, and I hate people kidding themselves. And as I kind of moved through the church, it became clear to me what you're saying is a real problem. That people create very straight lines for people to walk down. And that things like creativity and poetry and thinking broadly and telling the truth become more and more difficult. And obviously there are exceptions to that. There are some wonderful people around who don't do that. But I think there's a fear in people that if you open the tin, as we say in this country, too far, you'll discover there's nothing. So you continue with this human optimism, and of course things go wrong. And if you look at Jesus' life, I mean, someone said to me the other day about all the people who say, I want to be more like Jesus. And I'm going to write this little doggerel verse about it, which is about, oh, do you really want to be like Jesus? You want to never have sex for your entire life? Something you would go for? Do you want to be crucified? Do you want most of your followers to leave you? Do you want, at one of the most difficult points in your life, to be saying, my grief is so great that it almost crushes me? Do you want to serve without any deviation at all? And do you want to spend every single day not sinning? If you want to be more like Jesus, you've got to have a look at that. So it is a part of being alive. It's a part of being a Christian. There's no way out of that. And the logic is terrible. I mean, Christian logic, I had some discussions about Genesis and thingies and whatnots. But when people have been told that God loves them very much because he's their father, and then let's say a child dies, your heart breaks. And your father, who you were taught was wonderful, hasn't done anything. And I hear from people who are in that situation a lot, and I have no easy answers to it at all. what I do have is being able to listen to it without offering any answer to it. So that at least there is one avenue through which people can travel. It breaks my heart, and we hear about it all the time. I have to say, Peter, that it's good to have an opportunity to say some of these things. I've been mithering around to myself for ages. That something in me has leapfrogged over the logic issues because I'm really have a great fondness for God. And I sort of trust him, and I don't like what happens. But someone said to me years ago, whatever you do, don't let God off the hook. I think the way forward is to embrace and wrestle with the off-the-hookness of God and say, this is a part of Christian living. What does it mean? And where do we go with it? And don't try to wrap it up and get rid of it. You might have to put it on a shelf and wait. But there are no easy answers.
Yeah. When you're talking about that, easy answers, I was thinking about the Friends of Job.
Yes.
And that Ronan Keating song, you say it best when you say nothing at all.
Yes, that says it much better than I just said it, doesn't it? Yeah. No, that's absolutely right. Yeah.
Were these depths one of the reasons you wrote the Shadow Doctor books?
I suppose I wanted, because I've always wanted to see the church acquiring a language that is human. Mm-hmm. One of the things was, this all sounds very noble, but when you write a book like that, I actually wait to see what happens. But certainly one of the things was to see what happens if you create a man who's been through very difficult times and is still there and is using words that mean things to people. So that was one of them. The other was the character called Jack is I suppose me in the early days when I ran out of human Zoom and thought it was all going to disappear and to bring them together and see what happened. So I suppose that was the basic reason for it. Also, I love writing dialogue and ideas, and my wife quite rightly says I don't give enough attention to plot, and that's true. But I love bringing people together to find out what happens. That was the origin of them. I have loved it. I've loved writing them.
What's more difficult, to write humorous stuff or dramatic stuff?
That's a good question. Humor has to be funny.
Yes, it has to be. That's what my daughters always tell me. Yes. Dad, humor has to be funny.
Yes, it's a very good hint, isn't it? I've never run out of ideas. Thank goodness. It's not something that's happened really. People talk about writer's block. I've been very fortunate in that way. There's always something I've been thinking about. Things do make me laugh, and I've always hoarded them. I have a little man with a pen and a notebook in my head who writes everything down, and people often tell me about things that have happened to them. I'll tell you one little thing. There was a married couple, and he was in a wheelchair, and he said, one of my eyes doesn't work very well. And he said, we were at a pavement cafe one day, and a lady obviously had a healing ministry came along and said, I see one of your eyes looks as though it's not working very. She said, would you like me to pray for it? So he said, yes. Well, he was always up for it, like we all should be really. He said, yes, that'd be fine. So she prayed for him, and in her mystical arm movements, she managed to poke his good eye.
No, she did not.
There, he couldn't see through his bad eye, nor could he see through his good eye. But as with many of us, he felt so compassionate about her total failure that he sort of said, well, yes, I think that's really helped. And she went off rejoicing. There's a sort of little parable of what happens, but those things make me laugh. Lots of things make. Yeah. So that's always coming along. The other stuff, I think once I know the characters in a book, like I sort of know Doc and Jack, as I think I said earlier, I really look forward to hearing what happens when they talk together and when they talk to other people. There's a bit in one of the books where Doc, they're going to see a lady who has a lesbian relationship. Doc picks up a piece of bright red cloth to take, which for Jack is meaningless. And there is no meaning for it, except that he thinks it's a good idea. And later on it becomes, at one particular moment, a very useful thing. And it is a kind of mystical thing. I think the way in which God operates in Doc's life is how I would like to be. I hope I'm traveling that way, but I'm along with you. And as for drama, I love writing drama, and my wife and I work together all the time now. And we do lots of short sketches about specific issues, which have really, really been helpful because they make one point about something that everybody understands.
Over all those years, you not just experienced success, but also tragic moments. So, take for example the stroke you had. How did you experience God in that struggle, or through that struggle?
Well, I think by then, fortunately, I had left behind the days when I said, "Why have you let this happen to me?" Mm-hmm. My dialogue with God is more of the variety of me saying to him, "Well, this is up to you. If I were you, I would heal my stroke. You obviously don't think you should, and I'll go along with you because you are you and I'm only me. But don't mind giving it some serious thought. I would love you to do that." And then I worked very hard at getting my right hand going again and recovering generally. I don't think it troubles me much. The bad things are awful. I hate them. I don't think I blame God for those. Sometimes, if something really dreadful happened to one of my family, I'm sure I would racing around shouting at him. But no, it's very hard. Because other people will hear this, there are people whose children have died, and what do you say to that? Well, just recently someone wrote to me and said my child died and my faith went with him. And I did write him a reply, quite a long reply, but the main thing I said was that thank you for being truthful about how you feel and how it's happened. It's a very good beginning to recovery, go with truth, especially for Christians or people who were Christian. And I said, your real problem is that you have a double bereavement. You've lost your child and you've lost your God. And that is a massive blow. And he wrote back to me in a very pleasant reply, but later on I shall write to him again and see where he's gone to. And, it's up to God, really. I know that's a pie thing to say, but there is a time, of course. The people sometimes ask, don't they? You were a minister for years. Are there times when you're very direct with people? Yes. Well, yes, there are. I remember a couple coming to pray with us, and my wife and I, and they said, "Oh, our minister is a terrible man. He's awful, awful." And they went on to talk about how many ways he was awful and how they couldn't do what they wanted. And they finally stopped. And I said to them, I don't really want to hear any more, because if you want this man to go away so that you can be good Christians, I think it's probably the other way around. That you need to develop your view of other people a bit and then proceed from there. And actually, later on, we saw them again and they said, we're so glad you said that because we didn't even see it.
Yes.
We couldn't hear it in ourselves.
Yeah.
So there are times, for being Jesus is a very good example, isn't he? I'd hate to face Jesus if he was annoyed with me, which he has been, I expect.
Did he tell you that?
No, I don't think so. I think possibly I might be a sort of sitcom, The Trinity, a humorous program, which lurches from one thing to another. Every now and then I know I've done something wrong and I have to put it right. That's okay.
Okay, then let me remind you at this point of our conversation that you keep on saying that God is not just good and love, but he's also very nice and that he loves you.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
What's the difference?
What's the difference? Well, I should just make the point. I think it was in Switzerland once I was speaking and I said, God is nice and he likes me. And my translator translated this, you know the German, what you as God is good.
Yeah, God is gut.
Good, yeah. So I stopped her and said, no. Obviously he's good, whatever that means. What I'm saying is that he's nice.
Yes, net.
And she said, do we call God nice? Net. And I said, well, I don't know what you call him, but my experience is that he has allowed me to shrink the hugeness of it all to a point where he is saying to me, yes, I love you, but I also like you. And many people are missing that. I think the idea that God holds his nose while you pass under his nose to go into heaven is just awful. To be loved despite all the horrible things in yourself. During the period I was recovering from this, it's going on and on about it, this stress illness. It was then, and I think I wrote about it, but it was like your father sitting on a doorstep while you cycled around the yard, and there was no pressure, there was no reason to dialogue about sin or any of the other things or theology or any of those things, but to just be there. And certainly recently I've realized, and I hope I'll be able to express it somehow at some point, the incredible passion that God has for the world that he loves.
Yes.
And why doesn't he show it in ways that make more sense to us? You'll have to ask him. But I truly believe in my heart that he is for us.
Wow.
And working that out is not easy. It's not easy. But just to keep it in your mind that he's nice. Just thinking about when my daughter was small, we came out of a cafe where she'd been very sick, and we went home, and it was very embarrassing. I mean, she really distributed this vomit everywhere. But the cafe was so nice that we went back. We weren't going to go back, but we did go back. And this time she didn't vomit. As we entered the car park, I was holding her in front of me and doing that ridiculous little dance. And I tripped and fell. So I'm on my way to the tarmac with her little body between me and the tarmac.
Ooh.
Any moment now, there's going to be a horrible squishy noise, and she's going to be squashed. So I did what anybody who loves their little children did. I turned myself in midair.
Of course, yes.
Landed on my back, so she landed on my chest. And the question I've often asked people is, why do you think I did that? Why do you think I would do that? Because she was a very nice little cushion for me. If I landed on her, I would have avoided being hurt. And of course, they know the answer because I love her.
You love her. Yes.
Yeah, because I love her. And for some reason, after that had happened, it made me think of Jesus and persecution, which I've always feared. The idea of people with guns cornering you and saying, if you don't give up your faith and all that stuff. And it deepened in me the realization that the key thing you do is to fall in love with Jesus. So that when the problems come and the difficulties happen, that is what drives your decision making. if you're driven by fear or by complicated theology or by some half-assed situation that has been devised by people, your decision will be flawed. There's some key points in the Bible for me. One, obviously, is the rich young ruler, where Jesus says, you've got to follow me, and you've got to stop being the rich young ruler. I'm at the center, and that's what we're at. So if you can deepen that, and it only begins by allowing God to be a bit nicer than he's popularly supposed to be.
Wow.
Mostly people think, well, yes, he loves us and all that, but what's going on? Why doesn't he do more? Why isn't he closer?
Well, that's a tension field, right?
Did you say it's tension?
Tension, yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. If you don't have experiences of that, of the closeness of God, how would you imagine it to be the case? And one of the embarrassments of my life, if I'm completely honest, is having enjoyed being a Christian. Over these years, I've had some really great times. Partly that's because I'm a professional Christian, as you are, and have been. And you come into contact with it a lot, don't you? I mean, people, situations.
Yes, of course, yes.
You're always kind of fussing around doing stuff connected with God. That's partly why it is. But it's partly also because there are times it's been so sweet. I'll give an example. One of the problems with talking about God in your life is that you dress it up. You know what I mean? Something happens, and because you're frightened of saying what happened exactly as it happened, you add the word of the Lord or something, or God intervened, or whatever. If you actually say what's happened, it's very interesting. And an example that came to mind was I went to do, this is going to sound ridiculous, I went to do a weekend in Hong Kong. Madness. Anyway, I went, and I was desperately nervous. It was not long into me starting to do stuff. And we were on a hillside in a monastery there with a group of people from the cathedral, I think. And I was sitting at the front, terrified. I was thinking, I don't want to be here. I can't do this. It's awful, awful. Now, I'll skip to a few years later, right, and then go back. A young lady, I suppose she must have been in her early 20s, came up to me and she said, you don't remember me, do you? And I said, I'm afraid I don't. Where did we meet? She said, oh, in Hong Kong. And I said, where did I meet you in Hong Kong? And she said, you met me and my sister. And then it came that sitting on the front row, waiting for someone to introduce me and for me to make an idiot of myself, these two little girls had got up from the back row, walked up to the front, and come round and just laid their hands on my hands. And it was like two little angels who'd come to say, chill, just chill. And then they went back and sat down. So when I met this girl at this older age, I said, I always wanted to know, why did you do that? What made you and your sister get up and come round and do that? And she said, I don't know. I don't know. She said, and she doesn't know. We just thought it was the right thing to do. So we thought we'd do it. Well, obviously my private and very pleasant interpretation of it is that God thought, I'll give him a break here, a little bit of assistance. But the power was in what happened. And there wasn't a God bit in it anywhere. Just two little girls doing something.
Wow.
So when you talk about things God has done, sometimes God comes into it, which is obviously fine, but sometimes he isn't. And if you start by saying, God did something for me once, well, that's okay. But in the end, you really should be saying, this is what actually happened. And my interpretation is of God, unless it's very blatant, which it is sometimes.
Yeah, that's much more humble, and you're simply sharing what kind of experience you had.
Yeah. Let people work it out. Yeah. The prophecy thing is a is a big problem, I think. I've been in churches where people prophesy, and it's, what did Paul say? Come on, you're a minister. You say it was the greatest gift or the one to be most
stretched out for, right?
Yeah, that's right. So obviously you want it, but dealing with it, handling it in church groups, I'd love to know what your experience was.
Well, that would be another podcast. As a matter of fact, in the last podcast episode, it was about that topic.
Oh, really? Oh, right.
Yes, it was, because it was about listening to God's voice and prophecy.
Oh, right. Oh, that's very, very interesting.
It is. Let's come back to your thesis that God is nice and likes you.
Yeah.
I want to recite a line you once said, and I love it. It's so good.
Yeah.
You love despite, you like because.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh, so good.
Yeah. It's so much more positive, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
When I think of my little grandson now, who's 4, I think he knows I love him. But we do, try to tone things about him that we really like. We like the way he loves sweeping the floor. I don't know why he does. I don't, but he does. We like the way he talks to all sorts of things. And I think there is a message from God that people are not getting at the moment enough. Never have enough. Is I look at you and I like you. I don't approve of some things about you. And as someone famously once said, God loves you exactly as you are, and far too much to leave you as you are. But to be liked by God, to have the warmth of God in your life could change your life, I think. I've been criticized about that, Peter, in the past. I remember in one meeting, a man said, I want to ask you why you say such a pale and thin thing about God, that God is nice and he likes you. And I think I said then what I would say now, that if you manage to reach the point where you can truthfully say that, then you've gone past what most people have experienced. I think people still, because the worship songs and the language of the church is so total and overwhelming, that if you say, I have a fondness for God, it sounds weak. But if it's true, it's very strong. Anything that's true is strong. So, yeah, I would still say that.
Because it's about relationship, and you would say something like that when you have a relationship to someone and you're close to someone. You would not say something about someone who's far apart from you.
No, that's right. Yeah.
Maybe that's why you're brave enough to pronounce it like that.
Well, it's very nice of you to say I'm brave enough. And now I couldn't give a stuff what people think about what I say, really. I mean, no, I want to be useful, but I mean, I don't mind criticism is what I mean. I don't mind people saying they don't like that, as long as I can answer it in the right way. But I do think one of my hobby horses is, you have an equivalent for that in German?
For what?
Hobby horse. It's an idea that you keep on and on about, one of your opinions. Mm-hmm. So people will say, oh no, here he goes, he's on his hobby horse again.
A favorite subject, stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what it is. G.K. Chesterton said memorably, the thing that most of the church and most of the non-church people never been able to accommodate is the 3 words, God became man. And the man Jesus has become revolutionized in my mind in many ways. And particularly by a poem by C.S. Lewis that was given to me by a friend a few years ago. And it's such an amazing poem. And it's about his search for Jesus. And in the course of the poem, he says, I've searched through immeasurable forests for him, but my hounds find the scent too perplexing. So I've given up horizons and angels and music and poetry and thought. These are all the things he's famous for, of course, those last 2. And I've gone back to looking for the man who at communion said, don't forget me. Please, don't forget me. And this is the man who had to endure every day an appalling task. And finally, he was able to say, I did. I got through. And for other people, it won't be communion. Notice it was, I think he said, I feel nearer physically to the person of God at communion than at any other time. And that won't be so for everybody, since their experience is also different. But I like the fact that he did some decluttering in his life and was honest. Because everybody would say about C.S. Lewis, well, if ever there was a man who understood the reality of God, that's him. And actually, it's like many of us. He was a bit lost when it came to the man Jesus.
Adrian, there's a thought that has been spinning in my mind, and I thought I heard it resonate again and again, kind of between your lines.
Yes.
Could it be that in God's being as the great I am, there's also a secret for us as his children simply to be, instead of always feeling we have to do something?
Yes, I think there is. Yeah, there is another. What was the German for hobby horse? I like the sound of that.
Lieblingsthema. Nein, Steckenpferd, natürlich. Steckenpferd. Und jetzt, das ist sein Steckenpferd. Genau.
I mean, one of the things I have read to people is a letter from my daughter when I was in South Africa some years ago, and it was the year before the elections, 93, I think it was, and it was very tough. People were absolutely terrified of the bloodbath that some were prophesying. Not prophesying, I mean, believing would happen. And I was traveling around, and it was tough. And I got this letter from my daughter. It was then 4 or 5, I think. And she'd drawn a picture of me that didn't look like me at all. And she'd said, "Dear Daddy, I hope you are doing well in South America." Because I wasn't in South America, I was in South Africa. And then she said, "I miss you very much. I love you very much. Kiss, 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 kiss," and endless kisses. And so, of course, I screwed it up, threw it in the bin, phoned my wife and said, "Can you get her to do a better picture of me? And her spelling's not very good. And, one kiss is enough." Of course, I didn't do that. It's one of the most wonderful things I've ever received. And I think if people would appreciate that, Jesus says, if I stand at the door and knock, and he also says, and what he's saying is, look, just come in. I can't think of any more metaphors for knocking. The desire in the heart of God is for, like in Matthew, when you pray, go into your room, close the door, and your Father who sees what is done in secret will reward you. And one of the rewards for that is intimacy.
Mm-hmm.
And just being there, I'm sure.
Now you're at my Steckenpferd, my hobby horse.
Right. You're going to use that phrase now, aren't you, all the time?
Yes, I will. I learned that from today, and I will use that all the time. My hobby horse.
Right.
Yes.
Anyway, you were saying.
Adrian, I have kind of a request. You have to be honest. It's okay if you say no, but in one of your readings you did 100 years ago in Germany, you told this awesome story about a squishy envelope you once received at your publisher's office. I see you remember.
Of course I remember.
Could you do me the favor and please tell our listeners again that story? Is it okay?
Yes. Well, there's nothing wrong with the story, actually.
I love it. I love it.
When I went to do a thing in Germany once, and it was some people who were counselors or therapists or something. And when I got there, I said to the person organizing it, I said, "I'm sorry, but I'm not really sure why I'm here. I know nothing about what you do." And she said, "I just love your favorite word in German." And I thought, what is my favorite word?
Yes, what's your favorite word?
Yes, she said, Bustenhalter. I said, oh, I see. Right. You want the Bustenhalter story. And you want things like that. So that was fine. But what had happened and what she meant was, I was at the publishers, as far as I can remember it now, I was at the publishers and there were some fairly serious questions there, among others. And they gave me some posts that had come for me. And one of them was a brown paper bag. And I opened it and it had something squishy in it. And I shook it. And this bra came out, which it is Bustenhalter in Germany, isn't it? Yeah. And so if you imagine there's a group of people all staring at this
Bustenhalter
thing I've been sent, this Bustenhalter. And one of the people there made a sound that is only ever made by Christians. He said, yeah, yeah, which I think means, yes, faintly amusing, but rather disturbing and worrying, don't you think? I took the letter out that came with it, and this lady had written something like, I read in one of your books that you said when you traveled, most speakers have temptations of sex and money and power, but I seem to have missed out on those. It'd be nice to be tempted so I could at least resist temptation. That's what I'd written, I think. Flippant as ever. And she said, so I'd send you a consolation prize, which is my priority. So there was a little laughter. So I put it in my coat pocket and went home and forgot it was there.
Of course.
And a bit later, sitting with my wife, I said, I forgot to tell you. And I'd hung my coat up by then. I forgot to tell you, this lady gave me her bra. And she unfortunately laughed and said, don't worry, if you ever had an affair, I would have to organize it. We write a letter back to this lady saying, thank you so much for your support, which was a joke, etc., etc. So that was the story.
Wow. Thank you very much.
Right.
And you know what? Between my wife and me, it became something like a catchphrase that, yeah, because of you. And all the time we're hearing that, yeah, and it is out there. It is out there in churches. It is.
Absolutely.
We always think about you. Yeah.
I'm really pleased to hear that. I think you could make it the story of the poor men, putting the bed through the ceiling for Jesus to heal their friends. I've often retold that story as a committee of evangelicals might want it to be, where the men let the bed down and Jesus says, yeah. A couple of things. First of all, did you ask permission to break open the roof? No. Thought not? Okay, right. Have you paid for the roof to be mended? No. I didn't think you had. Okay, right. Have you seen the queue? There's 100 people out there waiting to be healed. You've jumped the queue. You put your friend right at the front. You think that's okay? No. Didn't think you would? Right. You must go to the end of the queue. Peter will give you a number, and eventually I may be able to help. But in fact, of course, Jesus was profoundly attracted by passionate love, as you see if you read through the Gospels. And for these four guys to crash through and get their friend who they loved at his feet was a wonderful thing. Like with the Roman centurion and his servants. Yeah, I think he really appreciates passion. Actually, interestingly, when people are going through really difficult troubles and can't pray, we've often said to them, you can find 4 people who love you and care about you to do the praying for you, and you just stop, and they'll let you down gently in front of them.
Wow.
And that's been very useful sometimes.
Wow, thank you for that. Speaking of Jesus, one last question, Adrian.
Right.
Who is Jesus for you?
Who is he for me?
Yes.
Very difficult question to answer as easily as that. But I am thinking. Well, first of all, he is an enigma. He is truly a mystery, which is odd because he's also has been a constant, important thing for me. Somebody very close to us asked us recently, why do you go on with this Christian thing? Why can't you be like everybody else and just have views? I had to think about that for a long, long time. And finally, I excavated the truth, I think, truthful answer. And it's kind of linked with the Emmaus story. Once they'd heard this stranger preaching, and then he appeared and disappeared. And one of them said to the other, did you feel your heart burning inside you when he spoke to you? And we said to the person who was asking the question, it burns in us. We can't make it unburn. And the burning is Jesus. And I feel such a strong gratitude to him now for working so hard. And I think this thing about communion, being able to say, we won't forget you, because we now understand that you did this as a man. Yes, you're wrong, but you did this as a man for us. And it's amazing. You don't even understand what it is, really, but you did it. Well, I don't understand it. I don't know, all sorts of things. And just, I think that's probably all I can say about it.
Thank you very much.
Some great questions, Peter. Thank you very much.
Yeah, it was awesome. It was a pleasure to have you here. So thank you very much, Adrian. Be blessed.
I will do my very best to be blessed, Peter. Thank you.
So the thing is, you don't have to do anything for it at all.
No, I can't make myself blessed.
No, but he will, because he is nice.
Exactly. Okay. Bye-bye, Peter. Thank you.
All right. In the show notes, you'll find links to Adrian's website and his current book, Still Crazy. I'm looking forward to the next time you listen to the Staatsgespräch. To be reminded, just leave a subscription. A nice comment and/or a 5-star rating is also welcome. Many thanks to all of you who support the podcast financially by donating via PayPal. You'll find the donate button for PayPal at the bottom of the show notes. I'm grateful for any amount. That's all, folks. With this in mind, have a good time. We hear each other. Until then, bye.